I was halfway under the server rack with a flashlight clenched between my teeth when Todd swaggered into the room like a cologne commercial gone wrong. Loud, smug, and radiating that misplaced confidence only middle managers seem to master. "Got it working?" "Good," he said, like he'd debugged it himself instead of spending the morning golfing while I stayed late again. Not even a nod, just his usual smirk as he strutted off, already typing something on his phone. 2 hours later, I saw the email. Todd pulls off at Miracle again. Subject line straight from hell. By Wednesday, his miracle had mutated into a full-blown presentation to the VP. My code, my sleepless nights, my caffeine-fueled rewrites, wrapped neatly in his buzzword salad about strategic infrastructure. I sat in the back of the meeting room eating a cold bagel while they applauded him for visionary execution. At Alloy Systems, the rule was simple. Keep the lights on. Let someone else take the credit. I had 7 years in, no complaints, no promotions either. HR told me once that I lacked executive polish, which apparently meant I didn't flirt, golf, or laugh at Todd's recycled dad jokes about how his Tesla had better processing power than my laptop. I wasn't angry then, just numb. You ever feel like a screensaver at your own job? That was me. Quiet, dependable, and invisible. They depended on me the way lungs depend on air, but nobody thanks the air. Then came the storm. A real one. Thunder, lightning, and a flood that turned the parking lot into a wading pool. Todd had refused to buy surge protectors. Too expensive, he said, and the backup power went down for 3 hours. I stayed late alone, wading through puddles, rerouting cables, and patching systems with one hand while bailing out water with the other. By the time I was done, my hair was plastered to my face like spaghetti, and my sneakers squished with every step. I dragged myself to the break room for a cup of whatever passed for coffee, and found him there. The new custodian, coveralls, mop in hand, kind eyes. He looked at me like he could see through the exhaustion. "Rough night?" he asked. I shrugged. If I die of electrocution here, at least the servers will die with me. He chuckled quietly. "That's poetic," he said. I pulled out a soggy sandwich from my bag and split it in half without thinking. "Half turkey, half despair," I said, offering it. He smiled and took it, nodding. "Fair trade." We ate in silence while rain hammered the windows. It wasn't flirtation, not networking, just two tired people existing in the same storm. And weirdly, it felt like the first real human moment I'd had in that building in years. The next morning, Todd strutted in wearing a fresh shirt and a grin wide enough to block sunlight. "We're moving up," he told the VP, motioning at me like I was a piece of furniture. "She keeps the system stable. I drive the vision." I looked at the clock. 1:13 a.m., the time I'd pushed the final patch. I had the screenshot to prove it. Something shifted inside me that day. Not anger, not yet, just awareness. Like the first flicker of a dying bulb before it glows brighter than ever. 2 weeks later, Todd rolled into the all hands with a tight suit, a clicker, and a smirk. "Realignment is coming," he announced. "We're shedding legacy functions. Legacy. Corporate speak for dead weight." My stomach sank. By noon, I got the email. "Hi, Jenna. Effective immediately, you'll be transitioning off the Stratus client project. Please hand over documentation to Marcus and focus on maintenance tasks." Todd. The Stratus project was mine. 2 years of work, built from scratch, defended through outages, client tantrums, and budget cuts. I'd poured myself into it, and now I was being demoted to digital janitor while Marcus, who once asked what an API key was, got my seat. I walked into Todd's office without knocking. He didn't even look up. "It's above your pay grade," he said when I asked why. Just like that. Not even a lie, just dismissal. My jaw tightened, and my heartbeat went flat. "Got it." I said. Wouldn't want to play outside my lane. He smirked. Exactly. Team player. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the custodian, Mike, someone had called him once, standing near the printer, mop in hand, eyes calm, watching everything. He didn't say a word, but his small nod told me he'd seen this play before. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't over. Back at my desk, I deleted the Stratus project folder from my bookmarks. Not out of defeat, but out of spite. If they wanted me tucked away in maintenance, I'd give them exactly that. Bare minimum efficiency, zero heroics, no late-night patching marathons to make Todd look good. 2 hours later, Marcus emailed asking where to find the client schemas. I replied, check the onboarding documentation from February. If it's not there, ask Todd. He wrote it. The lie tasted better than coffee. When I hit send, I caught sight of Mike passing through the corridor, pushing his mop bucket with that same quiet rhythm. He didn't glance at me this time, but somehow I knew he understood. Todd strutted around like the office was his stage. He printed a fake title card, Todd Merriman, VP of Strategic Operations, and stuck it on his desk with glossy laminate, pretending the board had already approved it. He even started using the executive elevator, the one reserved for senior leadership, even though his badge didn't work there. Every day, I watched him charm and bluff his way upward, weaponizing charisma like a second language. Every night, I stayed behind to clean up the messes his vision created. The system would have crashed 3 times that quarter if I hadn't quietly fixed his code disasters. But invisibility had its perks. It let me observe. Mike was everywhere, not in a creepy way, just quietly omnipresent. Near the copier when Todd bragged about his leadership role, in the break room when HR whispered about restructuring, in the hallway when Lucas complained about the culture shift. He moved like someone with purpose, not like a janitor chasing dust. There was intent in the way he looked at everything, cataloging, assessing. Then came the morning of the memo. 9:04 a.m., a company-wide announcement hit everyone's inbox. Leadership transition, incoming CEO to be announced Q3. No name. Just a stock image of 2 hands shaking and enough corporate jargon to drown a dictionary. Todd nearly floated out of his chair. This is it, he said loudly by the espresso machine, already adjusting his tie. Big things are coming. The board wants innovation, boldness, disruption. He said disruption like he'd invented the word. By lunch, he'd started acting like the CEO himself. I watched from my cubicle, quiet, taking notes. It was a Tuesday when I found something strange waiting on my desk. A thermos, stainless steel, clean, with a small sticky note taped to it. Neat handwriting. Thanks for the sandwich. No name. I looked around. The office was empty. The janitor cart was parked by the elevator, untouched. I opened the thermos. Still warm. Cinnamon and hazelnut. Not the cheap sludge from the break room. Real coffee. I smiled despite myself. It was small, stupid even, but after months of invisibility, it felt like someone had noticed I existed. I set it beside my monitor like a souvenir from a parallel universe where people gave a damn. The next few days blurred together. Todd's ego ballooned to dangerous levels. He interrupted meetings, pitched my old workflows as new strategies, and forgot to credit anyone but himself. Every mistake somehow landed in my lap, and every success turned into his bullet point on a slide deck. HR called me in for a performance alignment check-in. Some behavioral concerns had been raised. Translation: Todd didn't like being reminded he wasn't God. I smiled, nodded through their lecture about tone, then went back to fixing another bug Marcus had created. I stayed late again that Friday. 7:40 p.m. The building was quiet, humming with the low drone of fluorescent lights and vending machines. I was rerouting data logs when I heard the soft squeak of mop wheels. Mike appeared in the doorway, leaning on the handle like it was a staff from another life. Long week? He asked. Define long, I said. not looking up. Are we talking in hours or in bad decisions per manager? He chuckled softly. Both count. He watched the code scroll across my screen for a second. You ever notice how systems fail? He said after a beat. Not all at once, just small leaks. Tiny things people stop paying attention to. I looked up. That's oddly profound for a janitor. He smiled faintly. Neglect ruins more than sabotage ever could. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. You talking about pipes or people? Does it matter? He asked, voice calm, almost kind. The hum of the servers filled the silence between us. You ever do everything right? I asked, and still get called an assistant? He didn't blink. Every day for 12 years. That answer stopped me cold. I turned in my chair, meeting his eyes. What did you do? He smiled again, faint, cryptic. Waited, took notes, watched the leaks. Then he turned away, pushing his mop down the hall, his steps unhurried, measured. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd just been warned or prepared. Monday arrived with the kind of tension that made the air feel heavy. Todd was louder than usual, pacing around the open floor plan, tossing buzzwords like confetti. Synergy, cross-functional innovation, culture transformation, each phrase more meaningless than the last. By noon, he'd bragged to at least 5 people that he'd been looped in on the incoming CEO decision. The man was allergic to silence. Around 3 p.m., I stopped by the printer to grab audit logs when I caught sight of something odd. On the mezzanine level, the glass-walled boardroom that usually sat empty between quarterly reviews, someone was inside. Mike, no mop, no bucket. Just him in a clean gray zip-up standing near the far end of the table as 3 men in suits argued over a tablet. He wasn't cleaning. He was observing, calm, unmoving, like a statue that suddenly decided to breathe. One of the suits gestured toward the door, but Mike didn't flinch. He looked straight at me through the glass and nodded once, slow and deliberate. Not a hello, an acknowledgement. My stomach dropped. I turned away fast, pretending to fix the printer jam that didn't exist. When I looked back, he was gone. The rest of the day felt off-kilter. At 4:57, a calendar invite popped up on my screen. Executive briefing, 9 o'clock a.m., conference room A. No sender, no description, no guest list. It slotted into my Outlook like it had always been there. I asked around. Nobody else got it. Not Lucas, not HR, not accounting. But I overheard Todd bragging near the elevators. Big day Friday. Some of us are getting the call up. He hadn't seen me, but I saw his grin reflected in the glass. Pure arrogance. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the calendar invite on my laptop, ramen half-eaten beside me. My cat, Pixel, pawed at the screen like she wanted to delete it for me. I couldn't sleep. Every memory of Mike replayed in my mind. The calm eyes, the small nods, the way he spoke about systems failing quietly. Something was building. I could feel it. Thursday came and went in a blur of fake smiles and real exhaustion. By Friday morning, I was up before dawn, ironing the least wrinkled blazer I owned. It still smelled faintly of printer toner and anxiety, but it would have to do. I packed my laptop, the latest infrastructure map, and a notebook, just in case this briefing turned into another round of finger-pointing. I left early, parking 2 rows away from my usual spot, closer to the loading dock. Maybe superstition, maybe survival instinct. The building felt eerie, too quiet, like it knew something I didn't. The lobby guard looked unusually alert, flipping through a clipboard as if actually reading names. That's when I saw him. Mike, but not the Mike I knew. No coveralls, no mop. Charcoal gray jacket, sleeves rolled neatly to the elbows, pressed slacks, clean shoes. He stood near the executive elevator. the one Todd loved to pretend he belonged to. 2 security officers flanked him, not escorting, accompanying. He looked right there, like he belonged. The elevator doors opened, gold-trimmed, polished. Mike stepped in. One of the guards caught me watching and gave a polite nod before the doors closed. My sense of reality went with them. My phone buzzed. "Todd, hope you've got coffee. You'll need it." I wanted to text back something cutting, like, "Hope you updated your resume," but I didn't. Instead, I slipped the phone away and took the regular elevator, the one that creaked and smelled faintly like old carpet cleaner. The ride to the 8th floor felt longer than usual. The hallway was half lit, assistants moving quietly, setting up coffee trays, name cards, water glasses. Everyone looked like they were bracing for impact. At the reception desk, Mara, the front desk assistant who usually barely looked at me, smiled. A real smile. "You're on the list," she said softly, handing me a folder with the Alloy Systems logo embossed in gold. My name printed neatly on a badge clipped to the top. Jenna L. Reeves. No title, no department, just my name. Clean, centered, unqualified. It felt like proof that I was finally seen. I walked toward the boardroom, my heels echoing louder than usual on the polished floor. Inside, the air felt charged, like the pause before thunder. Every chair was filled except 2. Todd wasn't there yet. I was. And something told me the game was about to flip. The clock on the wall ticked over to 9:01 a.m. as I pushed open the glass door. Not 9:00, not 9:02. Exactly 9:01. Inside, the boardroom was packed. Every seat filled, every posture tight, like an orchestra waiting for the first wrong note. Polished leather folders lined the table. Tablets glowed faintly beside untouched glasses of water. The air hummed with nerves and aftershave. I scanned the room and spotted Todd 3 chairs from the head of the table, sitting like he'd already signed his corner office lease. He caught my eye, smirked, and raised his voice just enough to make sure everyone heard. "Fashionably late, huh, Jenna?" he said, laughter echoing from a few of his loyal sycophants. The kind of fake chuckles that sound more like survival than humor. My face stayed neutral, but my pulse hammered. I opened my mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to say nothing at all. But before I could speak, a voice cut through the room. Calm, even, authority in every syllable. "She's with me." All heads turned toward the voice, and that's when I saw him. Mike. No mop, no coveralls, no quiet shadow leaning in a hallway. Just a man in a tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and a black watch that caught the light every time he moved. The chair at the head of the table, the founder's chair, was his. He wasn't watching anymore. He was leading. "Let's begin," he said smoothly, unfolding a folder in front of him. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." He didn't look at Todd when he said it, but everyone else did. Todd blinked like someone had just switched the language on his subtitles. "Wait, sorry, are you saying you're the new CEO?" His laugh came out high, thin. "This some kind of, like, undercover boss thing?" Mike didn't laugh. "No, Todd, it's a due diligence thing." He turned a page, his movements precise, unhurried. "I've been with Alloy Systems for 5 weeks, observing, listening, watching how the company functions when titles leave the room." Someone at the table shifted uncomfortably. Another cleared their throat. Todd tried to grin through it, failing spectacularly. "So you've just been cleaning? Hanging around?" Mike nodded once. I wanted to see how leadership behaved when no one was watching, how they treated their teams, how they handled ownership, credit, and accountability. His gaze lifted to meet Todd's, calm as still water. You failed that test. The silence that followed was nuclear. You could hear the faint hum of the ceiling lights, the click of someone's nervous pen. Todd's face drained of color, his jaw flexing like it might detach. Now hold on, he started, but Mike lifted a finger. Not aggressively, just enough. The room went dead quiet again. In the past month, Mike continued, I've had lunch with the developers, the reception team, facilities, finance. I've seen who carries the weight around here and who takes bows for work they didn't do. He flipped another page. Some people perform for an audience. Others keep the show running after the curtain falls. Then his eyes shifted toward me. Jenna Reeves is one of the few who passed. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Not pride, not shock. Something quieter, deeper. Recognition. Like hearing your name called after years of silence. Todd stammered, words tripping over themselves. There must have been some confusion. No one told me. Mike's expression didn't change. You were never supposed to be told. He reached into his folder, pulled out a printed audit log, and slid it across the table. The soft scrape of paper sounded like a verdict. These are document histories from the Stratus client project. Time-stamped commits, version records. The files you presented to the board as your own last quarter are Jenna's. 2 board members leaned forward. The legal counsel, a silver-haired man named Terrence, picked up the papers, scanning them silently. The only sound left was Todd's breathing, shallow, uneven. I supervised those deliverables, Todd said weakly, palms flat on the table. That doesn't mean... Mike's tone didn't waver. You supervised them into plagiarism. Laughter didn't follow. Just the kind of silence that strips a person down to truth. Let's begin the performance review, Mike said simply. Starting with Todd. An assistant approached, laying a sealed envelope in front of Todd. His fingers twitched, but didn't touch it. Then another envelope, unsealed, landed softly in front of me. I opened it. Inside was a revised org chart for the technology division. Halfway down, my eyes froze. Chief Technology Officer, Interim, Jenna L. Reeves. I blinked once, twice, just to be sure. My throat tightened. Mike signed something on his folder, nodded faintly to himself, and turned the page. Todd sat motionless, pale, unraveling in slow motion. I didn't smirk, didn't gloat. I just sat still, steady, the hum of the boardroom air conditioning washing over me like white noise. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't need to speak to be heard. I was already the headline. There's a kind of silence that doesn't belong in corporate spaces, the kind that follows when power flips and nobody knows where to look. That was the sound filling the room. Not applause, not shock, just a thick, still awareness settling over everyone. For the first time, the hierarchy in Alloy Systems wasn't top-down. It was upside down, and the man who'd been mopping floors 2 weeks ago was holding the reins. Terrence, the company's legal counsel, leaned forward, glasses glinting. So, you've been working in building operations? He asked, voice measured, like testing the air before a storm. Mike gave a calm nod. Some of you knew me as maintenance? Yes, he said evenly. That was intentional. I wanted to see how this place worked when no one thought they were being watched. Chairs creaked. A few executives exchanged glances, the kind people trade when they realize their poker faces aren't strong enough for what's coming. Todd tried to laugh again, the sound brittle as glass. Right, okay, so this is some kind of experiment, sure. But we've all been pulling our weight here. Mike didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to, some more than others. He turned another page in the folder, smooth and deliberate, like a surgeon revealing an X-ray. I've reviewed communication logs, project records, client correspondence. I've seen who contributes and who coasts, who builds and who takes credit. He didn't need to say Todd's name. The air did it for him. Todd's jaw clenched so tight you could almost hear enamel crack. "Greg, we've all made mistakes," one of the board members began carefully, misnaming him in the confusion. "But this seems a bit—" Mike's eyes lifted slowly, meeting hers. "This isn't a disciplinary meeting," he said softly. "This is accountability, the part that's been missing for years." He tapped his pen twice on the folder, the sound precise, final. "Let's proceed." The assistant beside him opened a laptop, the screen angled toward Mike. "During my observation period," he continued, "I found patterns, decisions that prioritized personal optics over operational integrity. The Stratus incident was just one example." He gestured to the printed packet Terrence was still reading. "Those version histories show that Jenna was writing, testing, and deploying code while Todd was claiming completion in his reports. Multiple witnesses confirmed the timing. HR received an anonymous tip corroborating it." Todd's mouth opened, then shut again. Words were useless currency now. Mike's tone didn't harden. It only grew quieter. "Do you understand how that kind of leadership erodes a company from the inside out? How it breaks trust at every level?" Todd swallowed. "It was collaboration," he managed. "Collaboration?" Mike repeated, almost gently. "Then why is your name the only one on the submission files?" No one moved. Someone's pen rolled off the table, hit the carpet, and didn't bounce. Todd's face had gone gray. "Look, maybe I miscommunicated, but we've all worked long hours. We've all—" Mike closed the folder, some longer than others. He leaned back, folding his hands. "Todd Merriman, effective immediately. Your employment with Alloy Systems is terminated pending review. Your severance will be handled by HR." His tone was matter-of-fact, no malice, just the clean efficiency of truth. Todd sat frozen. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just stared at the logo on the wall like maybe it would save him. Two security officers stepped forward, not abrupt, just quiet, professional. Todd stood up slowly, his chair scraping the floor with a sound that made everyone flinch. He didn't look at me as he left, though I felt the heat of his gaze as he passed behind my chair, a mix of disbelief and something close to fear. When the door closed, Mike didn't pause. "Now," he said simply, "we move forward." He gestured toward me. "Jenna, as interim CTO, you'll oversee the system stabilization project starting today. We'll rebuild the infrastructure the right way this time, with transparency." My throat tightened, but I nodded. Steady. "Understood," I said. The board began murmuring approval. Terrence cleared his throat. "Ms. Reeves, I'd like to schedule a compliance review with you later this week." I nodded again, pulse still hammering. Mike looked around the table, his calm presence pulling the room back into focus. "This company has spent too long rewarding noise and ignoring substance," he said. "That ends now." He glanced at me once more. "And that thermos on your desk, Jenna, keep it. Consider it a reminder that someone always notices who keeps the lights on." The meeting adjourned without ceremony. The room emptied slowly, everyone whispering like they were afraid the air itself might be recording them. I stayed seated, fingers still on the folder, eyes on the words Chief Technology Officer. It felt unreal, like holding proof that invisibility wasn't permanent. Through the glass wall, I saw Mike speaking quietly with Terrence, shaking hands, expression unreadable. Then he turned slightly, caught my eye again, and gave the smallest nod, the same one from the hallway weeks ago. Only this time, it wasn't a warning. It was acknowledgement, a silent, You made it. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt it too. The moment the boardroom door shut behind the last executive, I let out the breath I'd been holding since 9:01 a.m. My hands were still trembling slightly, the folder warm under my palms. CTO. Interim or not, it was printed in black and white, stamped with the company seal. I wasn't just holding paper. I was holding proof that all those silent hours under flickering lights had meant something. The hum of the air conditioner filled the room like a heartbeat as I stood up, legs a little unsteady. Through the glass, I saw the 2 security officers escorting Todd toward the elevators. His shoulders slumped, his phone clutched tight in one hand like it could still save him. He glanced back once, just long enough for our eyes to meet. For a split second, I almost pitied him. Then I remembered every time he'd laughed off my ideas, every time he'd stolen my words, my work, my credit, and called it leadership. The pity evaporated like mist on hot glass. Mike and Terrence were still talking near the door when I finally approached. Mike looked up before I even said a word. "You did well," he said simply, and somehow that meant more than any title. "It wasn't easy sitting through that," I admitted. "You sat through worse for years," he replied, one corner of his mouth lifting slightly. This was just the first meeting where people were forced to notice. Terrence shook my hand. "We'll handle the transition paperwork. Expect HR to reach out for compliance verification. You've built good systems here, Ms. Reeves. It's time you actually get to lead them." His tone was professional but sincere. As they left, Mike turned back once. "Stay sharp," he said. "This isn't the end of something. It's the start of a cleanup." Cleanup. The word lingered. By the time I returned to my desk, the floor was buzzing. People whispered, stared, avoided eye contact. Rumors travel faster than data packets in this place. A few brave ones smiled, quick, nervous flickers of support, but most stayed buried in their screens. The empty space where Todd's nameplate had been felt louder than any gossip. Someone had already removed his fake VP placard from the door. I sat down, exhaled slowly, and opened my laptop. A dozen system notifications blinked in red. Errors, misconfigurations, and half-finished deployments Todd had greenlit without QA review. Typical. It was like inheriting a kingdom of duct tape. But for the first time, fixing it didn't feel like thankless maintenance. It felt like reclaiming something. Around noon, I found a folded note slipped under my keyboard. "Told you the leaks would show themselves," it said, in the same neat handwriting from the thermos note. I smiled, shaking my head. Mike's sense of timing was almost supernatural. Over the next week, the landscape of Alloy systems shifted faster than anyone expected. HR sent out new org charts. Performance reviews were quietly reassessed. Meetings that used to be echo chambers for ego suddenly had empty chairs. I started leading the daily system syncs myself. Shorter, sharper, no buzzwords allowed. By Friday, production uptime had improved by 12%. Even the interns started looking me in the eye when I spoke. It wasn't about authority. It was clarity. One night, I stayed late again, old habits dying slow. The office was dim, the sky outside streaked orange and violet. I was reviewing system logs when I noticed someone standing by the window. Mike. No suit jacket this time, just a rolled-up shirt and that same quiet calm. "You're still here," he said. "So are you," I replied. He nodded toward my screen. "You're rebuilding the foundation." "Trying to," I said. "Todd left a lot of messes behind." "Most do," he said. "But the people who clean them up, those are the ones who shape what comes next." He paused, then added, "When I first came in undercover, I wasn't looking for talent. I was looking for truth. You showed me both." The words landed heavier than I expected. "So, What happens now? I asked. Mike's eyes softened. Now you lead. Quietly, if you must, but lead. The company needs more people who don't confuse noise with progress. He started toward the door, then stopped. Oh, and the thermos. Don't leave it empty too long. When he was gone, I looked at it sitting on my desk. Silver, clean, still faintly smelling of cinnamon. Maybe leadership wasn't about volume. Maybe it was about resilience, the quiet kind that refuses to break. And for the first time, I wasn't invisible anymore.